we're here. The recent series we started with author Shaun Morrison about his coming memoir, Tour Stories from Beside the White Line. We focused on part one, the foundation, and talked with his dad, Randy. In part two, we focused on the loyalty that was in his life with his wife, Caitlin. And now we have reached part three, the journey. Shaun is going to give you some insight and information about his journey, and his writing companion, Geoff, is going to join us in the conversation to give us some insight about their relationship along the way and how they were able to use each other's strength to complete a ride from the Pacific Northwest all the way to the Atlantic coast. I promise you it'll be worth the listen. Let's go. And today on Voices, I am excited because we have been doing a three-part series about Tour Stories, a pending publication by Shaun Morrison. And I'm excited because the first two parts were very, very sentimental and close to your heartstrings. This one specifically is about the journey. Part three, Shaun is going to be joined by his writing companion, Geoff. And I'm excited to hear about this because there are levels to stories, and this one adds a level to the story that really should excite you about the pending book that's coming. So no person can introduce themselves better than themselves. So Geoff, welcome to the podcast, and I will let you introduce yourself first, followed by Shaun. So thank you, sir. The floor is yours.
Hey there, my name's Geoff Buell. I'm an illustrator, designer, and developer. I also have a lot of experience in the cycling industry. Shaun is my best friend, and we've known each other since high school. Started hanging out together because we were both on the track and cross country teams. We were pretty close in skill levels, and so we kind of just trained together a lot and learned to push each other and challenge each other. So that's how I know Shaun.
That's awesome. And Shaun, welcome back. Your turn.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back again for the third and final time, for this story at least. So everybody knows I'm Shaun Morrison. I'm the guy that rode his bike across America with Geoff Buell here, and I'm really excited just to get this thing going. So let's just roll right into it.
And you know, the thing that's really awesome about that is you guys are both at different stages in your life. Shaun, you're a family man now. Geoff, we're gonna learn more about you for the for the readers and for the listeners as we go. But obviously, you've matured more. But I think about the first episode that I recorded with Shaun with his dad. And I remember Shaun telling me, okay, so let's go. How did you tell your dad? And I just remember, like, his dad was like, this guy, man, we were at graduation and he said, I'm going to ride my bike across America. And we're just like, what? So Geoff, what did you do, or what was the experience like when you told your family? Because we're going to talk about what led to it, but I want to know, what was it like for you when you told your family you were going to ride a bike across the country?
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of I told my mom, and she was like, you're going to do what now? And just kind of explained it more. And, everything just kind of lined up correctly and in my life. So it was like proper timing for it. And I kind of just had to explain that to her that, if I'm going to do this, like, now is the time. And luckily she's like really supportive, and I don't think it was as dramatic as Shaun's experience.
Yeah, it must be nice, man.
well, here's the interesting part about Shaun. So, because I'm not sure where you were in your space. I know Shaun had just graduated, right? So, the idea family-wise was, get a job, go do this thing. Shaun was like, nope, don't want to do any of that. And so for you, what were you doing right before? Did you just graduate as well, or where were you at your?
No, so we both graduated at the same time from high school, And because I had already graduated college, Shaun, when he transferred, that tacked on a couple more years, I think.
I took a couple victory laps. Yeah. So what?
Yeah. So I had already been out of college, and I was working at a bike shop. So, as far as getting leave to go on a biking trip, I mean, what are they going to say? No.
And that's a really interesting thing, because I could just imagine going to your job and saying, you know what, just so you know, the next few weeks, I'm going to ride my bike across the country. And I'm sure like your supervisor's like, okay, like, do you have?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Think you're going to have a job when you get back? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned how you know Shaun. And so, Shaun, I want to ask you, like, we talked about it a little bit, but specifically because Geoff is here, it's interesting because the thing is that we talked to your dad, we talked to your wife, and I just think about the grand question, why Geoff? So, Shaun, why did you choose Geoff? What made him the choice for you? So I'll let you go from there.
Yeah, so you talked about earlier, or Geoff said that we were close to skill level in high school, but I completely disagree. Geoff was better at track and field, and I was better at cross country, and even though Geoff was right on my tail the whole time pushing me. But we were always like better at one thing or the other, and then that pushed us both to get better at both things. And anytime that I came up with a new super intense workout, or like, let's go on this crazy survivor trip, or any sort of weird, intense idea that I had, Geoff was right there and willing to do it. And so one day at lunch, I was like, hey dude, no, I think Geoff brought up, he said, hey man, I really want to hike the Appalachian Trail one day. And I said, cool. I'm down to hike the AT. Let's cycle across America too. So like, if I hike the AT with you, you got to cycle across America with me. And he was like, that sounds like a fair trade. And that's sort of how it came about. It came about very organically. And that was probably in 2004 or 5-ish. And it wasn't until 2012 that we made it happen. But
And that's awesome. So, Geoff, now we can talk about it. When Shaun came to you and said, hey, man, let's ride bikes across America, what was your response?
I mean, we'd already made that pact, right? So, I mean, why not say yes?
I vividly remember this part. Do you remember like the exact moment
Me?
that it became concrete? Yeah.
No.
No?
I remember being like, yeah, that's a really exciting idea. Like, let's do it. But I don't know if it took a little bit of convincing. Maybe.
Zero. It took zero convincing. I see this like crystal clear. We were on Facebook Messenger back in 2011 or so, back when it was actually utilized. And I sent you a message, and it was just a date. It was September 1st, 2012. You said, what is this? I said, that's the date we start cycling across America. And you said, I want to get this right. I can't believe it's finally here. Or no, it was no, you don't know how long I've waited for you to say that. That's what it was.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So there was an anticipation there. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been pretty adventurous. So I think that I do remember that, and I think that that message was like the universe kind of working itself out, and it was just like, now's the time. It makes sense because I was single. My roommate was moving to another city. Our lease was up. So it was just like, let's do it.
Yeah. And I had, that's like when I stopped working at camp, give me like a 2 or 3 week break, and then take off.
Which is cool to me if we think about it sort of in that grand sense of you guys. If you think about it, it's not that you were little kids, but think about kids saying something to each other. Hey, we're gonna do this thing together, and then you did it. You know, and so
True.
the thing about it is, the cool thing about it is clearly in your friendship, in your relationship, whenever you said things to each other, you didn't say things and take them lightly. Like when you said it, it was a thought out thing. You're like, hey, we're going to go do this thing. And both of you didn't know when, but you both felt a certainty that this was going to happen. So I think that says something and speaks volumes about not only both of you, but your vision. I don't know if you look at it that way, but I think that says something about your own vision, you know?
I very much view it the same way, because almost daily I think, okay, when is the AT going to line up? Because it's still like a debt that I have to repay in a sense. And it's something that is going to happen. Like there's no question about if it will happen. And okay, well, I say the AT, it might not be the AT, but some grand hiking trip, right? Something like that. But
No, it's going to be the AT.
Okay, whatever. I just feel like it's a little overdone, but that's
We're
fine.
going to
We can
be
do the AT.
geezers.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the funny
We're gonna
thing,
be like
and
90 years old, like trying.
the funny thing is, Geoff, I know Shaun has a family and all that. The interesting thing is, when I talked to Shaun before, he said, yeah, you know, I'd ride my bike across the country again, but I would take my son and, you know, do family. And then I think, you know, you just said be geezers. So it's possible. I mean, you guys are setting up the AT with children, you know, which would be really cool, right? I mean, I think that would be like the most, I don't know, sort of sitcom-y storybook thing you could do, to go from like being young men to being adult men, doing something that you promised to do a long time ago. Not like Grown Ups, like the movie Grown Ups. We're not going to do anything like that, because you know that's a totally different thing.
But more like the bucket list, right?
Yeah, but not like, hopefully not old like that though. Hopefully not old like that. You don't want to be like getting ready to die. Like, we don't want that on you. Yeah. So
but it could be like that family that we met on the RV in the middle of the desert. Remember that? Mm-hmm. This little tiny RV, you know, 2-person type. I don't even know how to. It's a small RV, very small. We were riding, and we had about 40 to 60 miles left before the next city, and I was, per usual, starving to death. And this RV just pulls over on the side of the road, and it's like, hey, come over here, guys. Let's talk. Like, how far are y'all going? Right. So we pull over, and then these 2 strangers invite us into their RV and start giving us like granola bars and oranges and sweet tea. And it was like the best moment in life for me at that time, because I'm starving and you're giving me food. And that's all that I wanted on this entire trip, is just more food. I couldn't get enough. But they're feeding me and everything. And then so we start talking to them, and they're like, yeah, when we were raising a family, we took our whole family on a trip across America. Which is that, have I told you the story, Lou? Have I told you the story about the family?
No, I don't. It sounds familiar, because I think you mentioned a part of it when your wife was on, but I know she was like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah.
So you might have alluded to it,
but I
don't
repeating
know if
myself,
you went into
but it was
detail.
a family of 5. And so they, mom, dad, and three kids rode across America. And so I could definitely see me dragging my son, and I don't know if Caitlin's going to let me drag her, but I can drag my son up the AT.
Hey, make it a boys trip, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
So, Geoff, what did you leave behind when you decided to go? Like, okay, we're fast forwarding. You made the plans. You said, I can't wait to do this. You're on the plane and you're heading over there. What did you leave behind? Because we know what Shaun left behind, but what did you leave?
Yeah, not a lot. Like I said, everything just kind of lined up for me. Like, you know, didn't have a place to live. It was basically just packed up all my stuff and, you know, stored it at my mom's house. She was luckily cool with that. She was also okay with taking care of my cat for 3 months. But yeah, I mean, it was just like, other than that, it was just perfect timing.
And that's pretty awesome. So I remember in a prior conversation with Shaun, he was talking about like getting the plane ticket and getting all the stuff there, and then landing, and boom, let's go. So when you guys got there, and what was it like? Like when did you look at each other when you hit the ground and your bicycles are under your legs and you're like, okay, let's go. So what was that like? So, and this is where, because Shaun, I haven't asked you this question because Geoff wasn't there. So like you're about to start this ride, bikes are under your legs, you got your whatever you have with you. What was the experience? What was that feeling? So Geoff, I'll have you go first, and then Shaun, you can add to it.
The first day or getting off the plane?
The first day.
First day. Yeah, it was a little intimidating. I think I was pretty nervous. I'm sure Shaun was too. It was a pretty rough start. We had our hosts were kind of seeing us off, and they're like, waving us by. And I think we weren't even out of sight yet, and like Shaun's panniers just popped off and fell in the road. So that was a little like, okay, going to be interesting.
And that's awesome because you start in Washington State, and so I'm guessing what was like sort of the altitude area, the weather. What was that? What if we're visualizing, what are we seeing? So Shaun, I'll let you kind of fill in some of those, and Geoff, you can add to it.
Yeah, so we started in Seattle, so at sea level, but it was for whatever reason, just luck would have it, the 4 sunny days that Seattle sees a year was just consecutive, right? Like right there. So it was nice and sunny, beautiful Seattle weather, right there on the coast, a little bit windy. But like you said, I hopped on that bike and I got 5 pedal strokes into it thinking I was king of the world. And then boom, I hit a speed bump, my panniers pop off, and I was like, I'm not going to make it across America. There is no way, right? And then Dave runs over. He helps me put my panniers back on, and we bungee them down real good. And I'm like, okay, I'm good to go. I make it about 10 minutes down the road. We stop. We eat some blackberries that we saw growing because, again, I'm freaking hungry all the time. So we get going another 10 minutes, and then I hit a sewer drain. And then my panniers pop off, gets rammed right into my spokes. I almost flip over. And it ruins, it like shears the inside of my pannier. So now you can see my gear in my bag from the inside, or from like the underneath. And I'm like, there is no way. I've wrecked twice in 20 minutes. I have thousands of hours I'm about to ride here, and this ain't gonna happen. And for some reason, Dave just shows right back up. Dave was our host in Seattle, by the way. And he just comes out of nowhere like a cycling Jesus, and with 3 more bungee cords, and then we just wrap it right back up and I get going, and then we kept on cruising. But yeah, I was not hopeful at the start, to say the least.
So Geoff, you're watching this happen. What's going through your head, man?
I mean, I was just really happy that he didn't crash and didn't like injure himself, preventing us from actually doing the trip. I think that was the biggest concern, was like, what if one of us gets injured to some degree where like we have to stop, or we have to stop and quit. And I hope that didn't happen at all. And I definitely hope that was not happening like within the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, and I was nervous about that too, because I started the trip with a bum knee, right? Like I had heard it at camp. I don't know if I told you about that, Lou, but I slipped on some. I jumped over a tree playing tag, a form of tag, with all the camp kids. I was one of the counselors. I cleared this tree like a hurdler trying to beat Geoff, and I landed wrong, twisted my knee, heard a little pop, and just screamed like it was gonna. I screamed some things I probably shouldn't have screamed at a Christian camp. And yeah, so I started off with a bum knee, and so I was nervous about getting injured on that trip too.
So, and I haven't asked you this, Shaun. So obviously, for you to answer this as well. So, did you, Geoff? This question is for you first, and then Shaun, you can add your perspective as well. So, did you have a contingency plan? So, if this didn't work, was there a backup plan? Was there a contingency of like, hey, man, because you just said, you're like, hey man, I hope this doesn't ruin the thing. And I know Shaun, talking to him in different episodes, he had the resolve in his mind. He was like, I'm going to do this. And then right out of the gate, boom, boom, right? And so well, I haven't asked Shaun if he had like a backup plan, but I'm asking you, Geoff, did you have a backup plan? And Shaun, you can obviously add into that what your perspective was also.
Yeah, so I don't think there was a backup plan. We did go into it like full confidence, and I mean that's part of the reason we started on the West Coast. It was like, you know, literally there's no turning back. Like you're just gonna ride home now, and I think that, you know, we both had like our doubts and concerns, but like we both were very determined to complete it. And I think we were just prepared for anything to happen and just to try to adapt to that situation, because you can't prepare for everything. And yeah, so just like depending on the situation, if something came up, just try to adapt to that. I don't know if Shaun had something like specific other than that.
Speaking to your adaptation and getting ready for anything that comes, I learned this, I think we both learned this on the same day, but we woke up after being hunted by a hunter in the middle of the night, and that's a whole nother story. That's in the book. That's a whole thing. We woke up after that, and I get out of the tent all groggy, and Geoff's just over there like doing arts and crafts, and he's messing with a bicycle tube, putting tree sap on it, and sealing up a tree sap and then a piece of paper, I think, and sealing up one of the holes in his tire using tree sap. And
it was an actual like tire patch, but I ran out of glue.
Oh yeah, so you were using sap as the glue, and I was like, man, I never would have thought of that. That's genius. And so just the ability to adapt and use what you got, because we weren't anywhere near, you know, bicycle glue. That just wasn't happening.
So devil's advocate, right? I think that's an interesting phrase in itself. If you had to stop now, like years later, you've already been successful. If you had to stop, what do you guys think you would have done? And either one of you can go first. I just think that's interesting because both of you had this like steel resolve of we're going to finish this damn thing. But at the same time, things were happening. And like, I didn't even know about the hunter thing. So now you're getting hunted by Elmer Fudd. So now you got the whole thing going on. And I, if I'm not mistaken, I think you said something about a bear too, Shaun. So, I mean, you were going to be, or some kind of animal, right? I remember an animal in there somewhere. So you were going to be either, you're going to be food for someone or you're going to be on someone's a wall, right? So what if just, we're not being defeatist, but just on the other side, what do you think you guys would have done? Like, how do you think you would have looked at yourselves if you had stopped?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
That is one of the hardest. Nobody's ever asked me that. And I want to say immediately, like, and I would have a much different job, I wouldn't have the confidence that I have now, for sure. I think that trip gave me, you know, a lot of confidence, and that in turn has led me to take more risks with my careers. And I think that I would have played it safe and just gotten like a, you know, just an easy job and just rode life out.
And Geoff?
Man, I don't really know what we would have done either. Again, if it was like an emergency, obviously we would take, you know, the normal steps there. But if we had to like stop for some reason and like, you know, I think in my mind, like it was like, okay, if something happens, like, and we have to go home, like, how do we get the biggest, I guess, challenge would be how do we get away from the middle of nowhere to a city, you know, with an airport, and then how do we get tickets and get back home?
And that's it. It's the reason I asked the question about stopping is because I do think, and I agree that your lives would have been different. It's possible it could have been the same, right? because you may have taken up another challenge. But now that you went through it, there was no stopping. Your story now. Tell me about the story. What were some of the happiest moments during the ride? What were some of the low points for you? And what were some of the moments that you sort of remember collaboratively that you're just like, dude, like Geoff, what was a moment you're like, I can't believe Shaun just did that? Or Shaun, what's the moment where you're like, dude, what is Geoff doing? So I'm sure there are moments there. So Geoff, I'll have you go first, and then Shaun, you obviously can jump in as you feel necessary.
Yeah, so I mean that's kind of a tough question. For me, I think when I was going into the trip, part of what I was like kind of storing was I was hoping that I was excited for the different cities we'd be stopping in and passing through, and you know, kind of tracking like, okay, maybe I could live here, right? And I was expecting like, you know, a moment somewhere like that that just spoke to me. However, I think the happiest moments were just like outside of cities and towns when everything was just going right. Like it was just perfect weather, you know, legs felt great. You're just pedaling almost like in a meditative state, and you're just kind of being absorbed or even like dwarfed by the landscape and your surroundings, you know, just like really just experiencing that moment.
That's awesome, man. Shaun?
Yeah, that's a good point. I would say that it's coming out of that moment is probably my favorite, right? So you've got everything that Geoff just mentioned, except now your endorphins are through the freaking roof, right? And then I'll say something completely dumb to Geoff, and we'll both bust out laughing, like cackle laughing, tears come down face, almost want to throw up, and it's the dumbest things, right? Like one of them, Obama wouldn't let us fix the ozone layer that we got to stitch with whale blubber, right? Like that doesn't make any sense, right? But somehow context and endorphins and like this cycling high that we got just made, we literally thought that was the funniest thing on the planet. And it is the stupidest thing I've ever heard, saying it out loud now, right? But it's those moments that you can't explain, right? The ones that literally no amount of words would ever, even if I was good with words, it would never say how I felt or say help you experience that, you know?
And I think that the thing is, this podcast is really going to add a dimension to your book that really makes the reader see you more as a person, especially having Geoff there, because Geoff offers that third person, that sort of that Truman Show kind of view of I'm watching the whole thing happen. And so, what were some of the your favorite moments, maybe that you both kind of think of? So Geoff, like what's if you did the West Coast, you went Washington State, Oregon, California, and I'm guessing then you cut across the mountains. So you were what did you do? What states did you do? I'm trying to remember. I know,
Yeah,
but I'm trying to remember the past.
So we started, like you said, did the West Coast along the coast to San Francisco, and then that's when we turned inland, and we actually went across Nevada, and then rounded off the bottom corner of Utah down into Arizona, and then pretty much just a southern tier from there. Highlights for me, definitely the Pacific Northwest. It's just gorgeous out there and kind of mysterious too. I also like Nevada. I like just being in the middle of nowhere. And yeah, I don't know if Shaun has, I think Shaun liked interactions with people more probably than I did.
Yeah, very much so. Like what's his name? Dale.
Oh yeah.
Remember Dale? Like so we had just come off a mountain called Leggett, and Leggett is well known amongst West Coast cyclists, because everybody goes up Leggett and they're like, oh man, that's a hard mountain to hit, right? And then so now we're bombing down Leggett. We feel good. We just crushed this mountain. We just did awesome. We're bombing down it. We're singing about how easy that was, again, in one of those euphoric delusional states. And then all of a sudden we have this second piece of Leggett that just really just sucks the wind out of you. Nobody talks about this second incline. And so we're suffering up this piece, and I'm still trying to sing that song in the back of my head. And I'm like, oh, this mountain sucks. Oh my God. Right. And so then legs are full of lactic acid. I don't even celebrate when we start going back downhill again, because I fear that, there might be a third one. Who knows? And so then we make it, I finally see the coast, and it opens up. The tree line just opens up. I can see the ocean. I can see the coastline. I see the road. No more mountain. I'm super pumped, but I'm exhausted, and I see campground right there. And so we ride into this campground. There's like 3 RVs there and like maybe 2 tents. We start to make some food and realize that we're out of propane for our fuel. And so I'm like, hey, Geoff, I'm just going to see if they got any like propane or gas. And he's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you can't just go asking people if they got gas. Right. And I'm like, oh, no, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. So I roll up to this, one of the sketchiest RVs I've ever seen in my life. And I knock on the door, and this dude named Dale, very much King of the Hill-esque Dale, opens the door, and I ask him if he's got gas. I have to explain myself. I'm talking about propane. And he's like, no, but y'all can just come in and have some sandwiches. And I was like, sweet.
That was a pretty interesting segue. Do you have some gas? No, but you can have a sandwich. Okay.
and it pretty much went exactly like that, like zero talking. And he just brought us in for a sandwich. And while we're doing that, we're explaining the trip and doing all this stuff. And then he starts talking about how the Drug Enforcement Administration uses heat-seeking cameras to track down marijuana smugglers on the West Coast, and then that his brother-in-law is a DEA agent, or his cousin or something like that. And just those kind of moments that I'm never going to meet this guy in real life. Like, there's no way. But somehow here we are in the same trailer eating the same sandwiches. And those kind of moments were special to me.
And so you actually, Geoff, you made me remember something, because I remember Shaun talking about San Francisco. So I think if I'm not mistaken, Shaun, you said you might have stayed there longer than you should have, or something along those lines. So the stopover in San Francisco, was there anything specifically memorable for you, Geoff, when you were in San Francisco?
Yeah, I mean, that was a good time. We had some friends that I had a friend that I went to college with who was living out there, and some other friends were flying out there to visit, and we didn't really plan this, but we just discovered that we were going to be in the same city at the same time. So it just was really cool to just meet up with all those guys who I hadn't seen in a while, and just experience like a new city with friends and be on this awesome bike trip at the same time.
That's awesome, man. Go ahead.
It was stressful getting there. That was stress, and Geoff induced stress to scenario number one on that trip is we got to make it to San Francisco by this date, right? And then we got to make it to the Grand Canyon by this date. And then the last one was we got to make it home by this date, or else my girlfriend at the time is going to kill me. But we put those timelines on ourselves, and I feel like that is something that if I were to do it again, I would say, hey guys, if we miss you, we miss you. Like, sorry, because that it sort of takes away from like how much of that part of the West Coast did we miss, right? Like, I don't know. If I were to recommend it to someone else, I would say calm down, right? You'll get there when you get there. Just enjoy the day.
And I agree, because the thing about it is, in hindsight, you're like, even though if you think about it, those things probably pushed you a little harder to make sure you completed those things, because there was sort of a dependency that someone else was going to be waiting for you. But Geoff, you said something that I don't know if Shaun was aware of this, but I find it to be an interesting point. You said when you were traveling, when you were riding, you were looking at potential places, right? Which is interesting because like you said, you didn't leave anything behind. So for you, like obviously Shaun was going back to his girlfriend. He was going back to a stability kind of thing. I mean, obviously your home and your family are there, but you sound like you were open to say, as we made this ride, if I like this place, I might want to come back here, and this is where my somewhere is. Shaun, did you know
Yeah,
that?
yeah, he talked about it almost daily.
And that's an interesting part of the story, because the thing about it is that you were going through your own thing, Shaun, and we've sort of chronicled that, and the book will give more detail on that. But I mean, Geoff, you were going through something as well, but not sort of on a like none of it was like sad, but they were literally life altering moments where you were looking for something. So did you feel like you found anything along the way there?
You know, obviously I came back home and I really didn't move anywhere. I think what I found was that I did miss home. Like I've never been a person to be homesick, like going off to like camps and stuff like that. But it just after a certain period of time, for me, it just is a little bit longer, I guess, than other people. I just really like started to miss home. So yeah, ended up back here.
And that's fair. So as we start to make some of the transition, one of the more interesting things that I remember Shaun telling me, and I feel like if we're telling a story, this is sort of the climax of the story, is when Shaun said he ran out of money, and he's like, okay, I have to stop, and I'm going to work. Now Shaun gave his perspective on that. So Geoff, tell me what that was like when Shaun, Shaun, you set the moment up, and then Geoff, tell me what you were thinking when Shaun says to you, "Hey, man, I'm gonna stop."
Well, yeah, I'm sure Geoff knew that I was going to run out of money at some point, because I landed in San Francisco or in Seattle with like a couple $100, right? So I'm sure Geoff was like, "What is he thinking?" And so I ate cheap when I could, but I just kept being like, "Hey, Geoff, like, I'm running out of money, bro." And then, I was writing blog posts and stuff, and people were giving money via PayPal, and that was keeping me going, pretty strong for a long time. But it all came to a head somewhere around Arizona, I want to say. And we were staying with one of our warm shower hosts, and I was like, "Hey, Geoff, I'm cruising Craigslist right now. I'm looking for like one of those like sweep my roof off, or clean my gutters or mow my grass situations, and I'm gonna try to get some money. You just go on ahead, and I'm gonna hang back."
So Geoff, what was going through your mind when you hear this?
Yeah. So backing up a little bit, it's not like totally out of the blue, like we had been talking about, or he had been mentioning it. And I knew of like, people donating and stuff like that. And that also was part of some of the like timelines that I was hoping to meet, is so that like, it wasn't like you ran out of money like in Seattle.
Yeah.
But I was expecting that conversation, and it wasn't really like something that was an option. I mean, if I'm in a position to help my best friend out, like I'm gonna help him out. If he was like, "No, I really just want to stay and work," or whatever, like I'm not gonna stop him from doing that. Now, whether or not I would have stopped, I don't know, because it is hard to think about just cycling by yourself.
Yeah.
So if that were to happen, I think looking back, I probably would have like stayed put, and because I didn't have anywhere to go, and just like we work it out and figure it out.
And that's really cool, because if you think about it, it basically showed you were like there through thick and thin. So the question I asked before, what would happen if you stopped? The reason it never entered your mind is because it wasn't an option, nor was it ever like even in the atmosphere of something being an option, which is really cool. Now you mentioned something about home, and Shaun explained how he communicated back at home. So Geoff, what was it like for you to communicate back home? Like, obviously Shaun had a girlfriend and his family, and obviously, and we talked to his dad, where his dad was like kind of not, I wouldn't call it dismissive, but his dad wasn't terribly supportive in the way Shaun wanted it to start. But as we continue, obviously, I feel like his dad probably was more on his side, rooting him on from the sideline. So, Geoff, what was it like for you to communicate back home? And did you have conversations with Shaun about his communications with his family and your communications with your family?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my communication with friends and family, you know, a lot of those friends, like core group of friends that I went to college with, a lot of those guys were outside of home now, like they had moved away. And that was one of the reasons I was in the back of my mind thinking of other places along the way. But I also had like my newer group of friends kind of more in the cycling community back home that were really rooting for me. So it was good just to like, you know, get messages from them and support from them. And then of course my family back home. In terms of like, you know, being there with Shaun, it's kind of, you know, when you spend every single day with someone for so long, like whether you try to or not, like you're going to be kind of in their business. So, you know, I know that he had some, you know, more difficult conversations, especially with Caitlin, his wife, that, you know, I'm sure if like I was in a relationship, it would have been the same thing. You know, it's just hard on a relationship like that.
It was a good test. Hey, can I try? Is this gonna work? Let me go away for a little while. I'll come back. Okay, yeah, it works. All right.
Well, and that's cool, because the thing about it is we have the conversation with Caitlin chronicled, but it also gives that extra level of depth for the book. Another thing, Shaun, you have mentioned more so than Shaun has, and it's probably because I didn't talk to him about it. But you mentioned the cycling community. So, what was that like? What was the communication there? Because I know Shaun mentioned he went to different websites to find out from the cycling community, like what's the best way to make the trip. But you've mentioned like actually communicating with people back in that community. And also, Shaun, so sort of what is your relationship in this sort of same aspect for the cycling community?
Yeah, so I was mostly referring to, like I said, I worked at a bike shop, and I was mostly referring to a lot of my friends and coworkers at that time who were supportive, but like they were just kind of like in the beginning, like, good luck, I hope it works out for you. And then, you know, as time went on, like they were definitely like really, really supportive, and they're like, this is really cool that you're doing this.
Yeah, and I was a couple years removed from my job at the bike shop. Probably a couple years removed from cycle, like racing triathlons, and cycling was just something that I just did, and I wasn't really buried or immersed in the community. Although a lot of the friends Geoff's referring to at his bike shop, they're like, I know them, and I know of people in that realm, right? And I would say that some of them are my friends too.
And I thought about that because it's interesting, because there's always a community. Because I thought about it when we first talked, and you said how you sort of looked around to plot the trip, and then never dawned on me that there is obviously a community, because you told me about warm showers and things like that, which are all new information points for me. Now, while I talked about the communication, Shaun broke his phone like early on in the trip, and so.
Mother Nature broke my phone. All right.
Oh, sorry. So I don't want to blame you. So Mother Nature, you know, she wins.
Yeah.
And so, Geoff, you had a phone with you during the trip. Is that right?
Yeah.
And so, you were able to like regularly communicate with people in regular increments, more so than Shaun was, or how was that for you?
I think it was about the same. You know, being on the bike primarily all day, like you have to preserve battery life. So you either shut it off or you like keep it in airplane mode or something. So you don't really communicate with people throughout the day, or when you have to ration it. So, if you're in a place where you can get electricity, which usually was just like stopping somewhere and plugging in, um, you know, then you can like check your messages or make calls and stuff like that. But it, it I don't think it was like, when his phone broke, it was like, okay, you just use mine when you need it.
Right. I just wasn't getting those like everyday text messages and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just Shaun, you think that was something that was good for you? You said Mother Nature did that, but the universe might have wanted you to have less communication with people too, right?
Yeah, I think that in some ways it was probably a good thing, right? Because it happened just before we hit the Sierra Nevadas, and that's where I started dealing with a lot of the stuff with my dad. So it gave me more time to think through things for sure.
So, Geoff, along the ride, were you kind of like his counselor a little bit?
I think we definitely helped each other out,
All right.
through difficult times. Like I was feeling, pretty bummed out for some reason or the other. I was like, it was my birthday, and
Because we didn't make it on time to the Grand Canyon.
yeah, I admit that was a stupid goal. I really wanted to be at the Grand Canyon for my birthday, but uh, anyway. So the place we were at, Shaun just like talked to the people that own the place. I was like, hey, he's feeling a little down. It's his birthday. And, they're like, well, how about you guys can just shoot pool for free all night? So, little things speak volumes.
And the thing that I find really interesting is the goals that you guys had are really, really not only ambitious, but they're really cool because you were both in very different places, but in the same place, right? And so my question is that you're along the way, and when did you both know, or was it separate times when you knew you were going to finish? Like you could feel it. Not you all knew you were gonna finish from the get-go, but I mean when you really knew, you're like, dude, we're gonna finish this. So what was that moment like? So Geoff, I'll have you go first, and then Shaun, you can jump in and piggyback.
Yeah. I don't know if we did experience that at the same time or not. I know for me, like we were in Texas for like forever. Like we were in Texas for like 3 weeks, and
Stupid amount of time.
I think
I
when
hate
we, I think when we got through that, on the other side of that, I could feel it, and then especially once we left New Orleans, I was ready. And so I was just like, yeah, it's coming.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Shaun?
So for me, it was that conversation that I had with Geoff about, hey, I'm hanging back, and I called Caitlin and I said, hey, I'm stopping, and she said, hey, no, you're not, and then that was a very impactful time for me. So that resolved it in my probably in my heart, right? Like I felt like I was going to finish, and then logistically, I knew that I was going to finish once. I didn't die crossing the Mississippi River because I wrecked on that bridge.
Really?
Yeah. That was a pretty gnarly wreck for me. I think I had 2 or 3 bad ones, but that one was pretty bad. Flipped upside down, almost got hit by a car twice. It was wild. And then we made it through to New Orleans, and then that's when we did the 5 centuries in 5 days attempt. Is that right, Geoff? It was after New Orleans. I think we got rested up there, and then we said we're going to hit 500 miles in 5 days. And we didn't complete that, right? There was a couple of different variables. One of them, we met Liz from Swamp People. And so we spent like freaking half the day in a gas station talking to her. And that was probably one of the highlights of the trip for me, because I love that show. But after that, like when we came up with the idea, okay, we're doing this crazy thing, but like, let's make it a little bit harder, right? And we could control the intensity at which we're completing this event. That tells me that I'm in control of this entire adventure, and I can finish it.
That's awesome. And
I think I will tag along on that. Like, that is an interesting point. I think when you know, logistically, earlier what I was talking about, after Texas, I definitely felt it. But I think once we went from being like, oh no, you know, Shaun's panniers popped off like day one, to just being like comfortable, just like 100% comfortable in what we're doing, like that's when I knew that it was going to happen.
Exactly. Like I said, hey dude, we hit 100 miles. There's nothing around. There's a gas station. Let's sleep behind it. Don't even pitch a tent. Just get in your sleeping bag. Wake up before the sun comes up, and boom, we're on to the next one. Like just mashing the pedals, grinding, but comfortable, right? We can control that intensity. That was for sure when it settled in. I probably should have trained and gotten in shape before we started, so we could have got that a little sooner. But you know,
hey,
it is
man,
what it is.
It is what it is, right? So, the big one, and I remember I asked this question in the previous two episodes with your dad, with your wife, the arrival. When you arrived, what was that feeling? Because now this is different than, you arriving and you calling your dad, you arriving and your girlfriend at the time, now wife is picking you up. Geoff and then Shaun, what was the arrival moment like for you?
It was a little surreal. Like I said, after New Orleans, I was mentally just kind of like ready to be done. And we had been like extremely lucky for most of the trip with weather. And that last week just felt like it was December. It was gloomy. It was drizzling some days. And I just remember like being in Jacksonville. And when we first were able to see the ocean, like the sun came out and just kind of like, it was like, there it is, there's the finish line. And so that was like super cool. It did feel like from that moment to the actual ocean was a little longer of a ride than I expected. And then it got gloomy again. And I don't know, it just felt surreal, like actually walking out onto the beach and being like, man, did we just do this? It was cool.
Yeah, I'd been choking back tears for about a day and a half at that point, and it just randomly, for no reason, I would just well up like with an intense emotion and be like, well, I got to get this out before I see Caitlin, because I can't be crying like a little insert adjective. And so we rolled into the hotel, put our bags down, right? And then we took our bikes right back outside onto the beach and got into the freezing cold water, held the bikes up over our heads and just getting smacked in the back with waves. Icy, freaking the only time I subjected myself to cold voluntarily. And it was just a great foggy finish line. It was really good. I enjoyed it.
That's awesome. And the thing that really gets me about your story is that there's so many levels that, obviously we can't cover all the details, but you can feel that there was a fraternity, a brotherhood that happened along the way that you probably overlook now, that, it became like glue for you guys. And so I say that to say, post the ride, Shaun obviously has written a book about the event, but Geoff, so like post the ride, two questions. What did that ride do for you in the immediate aftermath of the event? But also, what were your thoughts when Shaun said, hey man, I'm going to write this book about what we did?
Yeah. I think that, it gave me like a sense of accomplishment and relief at the same time, in that moment, and it continues to like give me a confidence boost and just like a wonderful experience and memories to reflect on. Um, like, okay, I did this. If I can do this, I can take on whatever. Um, and then, it gave me, even getting to spend like those short periods of time with other people along the way, really gave me a perspective on how important community is, and just treating people with like kindness and respect, and how that goes a long way. Um, my friendship with Shaun definitely grew a lot throughout that. And I mean, when you spend that kind of time with someone, you're going to have your ups and downs, and you're going to get to experience those high notes together. You're also going to have to work through your problems and disagreements, but that just makes your friendship stronger. So yeah, no, when he told me he was like writing this book, I was like, super excited for him, and I was glad that he was doing it. And yeah.
Well, it took me a little while to write the book, but about a year some change. But you were talking about the moments of ups and downs and how our friendship grew, and I often equate my friendship with Geoff as something that is more intense than any sort of relationship that like I have best friends that I went through boot camp with, right? Or that I went through other like very rigorous military trainings with. Those guys have experienced things with me that nobody else will, right? Nobody was in that room getting yelled at and beat the same way that we were getting yelled at and beat, right? And so I have something with those guys that is just special. And then through that same sort of pain and suffering, I'm sorry if you can hear my son, he's getting a bath right now. Through that same sort of pain and suffering, Geoff and I like grew together, and I don't think that that's something easily broken.
Well, in addition to that, I know about those boot camp stories as well. It's a sort of different sort of fraternity in itself. You guys had a different sort of thing, because you really had trial by fire. I mean, you went through the mountains, you went through the rain, you met Boomhauer from King of the Hill, and all of that, and so that thing is something that is special just in itself. So with that, I want to follow up with the question that I think is definitely worth bringing in, and that's the role of how has that ride affected you as men today? What do you think it's done for you as men in this moment in your lives? And so, Geoff, I'll have you go first, and then Shaun, you can author it all.
Yeah, I think for me, like I said, it just really has given me a confidence boost. Like if something comes across my way, like I know I can handle it. Faced plenty of challenges along the way, and just working through them. I know what we went through, and I know that like I can make it work.
For me, I would say that, one of the reasons that I did this trip was because in our culture, in our society, we don't have things that are defining moments saying, hey, you're a man now, right? Nothing like they do in like South America or Africa, or I think some Asian countries do it as well. But there's like very defining moments in those cultures where they were a boy and now they're a man, right? And so that's one of these things for me. This was my own inflicted test, if you will, to say, hey, am I man enough to like step up and do this? And now that I've like gone through that and I experienced it myself, for me, what has this trip done in helping to change my life and the development of manhood? I would say that now I feel capable to raise my son and help him become a man, and pass lessons learned on. And it's not just through cycling, right? But it's given me the ability to work through life's trials and sort of filter that down.
That's awesome. And you know, I'm going to say this to you, and I've been waiting to say this to you guys, but I'm proud of you guys. And the reason I say I'm proud of you guys is because you've done something that, you know, if someone said that on the surface, hey man, I'm gonna ride my bike across America, you know they have planes, right? Like they have trains and planes and cars. What are you talking about? And like for instance, your conversation about Texas and how you said it took what 3 weeks or something like that to cross it. I thought driving across Texas from San Antonio to El Paso was awful. I couldn't even imagine what you all have done because Texas is like a world by itself. I understand why they are the way they are.
Especially when it took us 2 days to get through New Mexico. 2 days through New Mexico and then 3 weeks in freaking Texas. It was just the worst mind bender, if you will.
I believe it. And the stories that you guys have shared makes the preparation and the anticipation for your book that much more for me. I mean, obviously I haven't read the book either, but I'm very interested in reading the book, and I will be one of the people to help offer to support as well, because I just think it's a story about manhood. It's a story about maturation. It's a story about friendship, relationship, and family. Like you have all these things peppered in with some comedic things that makes almost sitcom-ish, right? Where people have to watch this series on Netflix, Tour Stories. Come check it out, right? But but the first thing I want to ask, because as an author of the book, Tour Stories from Beside the White Line, the first thing I ask as a consumer is, why should people get this book? So Shaun, I'm gonna have you, obviously the focus is on you now. So why should people get your book?
So I didn't start out to write this book thinking I was going to get rich or anything like that. I actually have out of a fear of dementia, like one day I'm going to forget that I did this, or I'll forget these like tiny details, and I need to just write this stuff down, right? And so I just wrote the book, and it just started out for me. And then I had a couple people saying, hey man, like I want to read your book, like make it happen. I like publish it. And I'm like, okay. So I'm not trying to be inspirational or anything like that, but neither were the people that, I read about, or the movies that I watched about these endurance athletes. They weren't trying to be inspirational either, but it happened to me, right? Like I gathered inspiration from them. It's just part of endurance sports in general. I think that everybody who shows up to the starting line of something like that is an inspiration in one way or another. And so, if you're feeling stuck, this book might give you the motivation you need to get moving, right? Not on a cycle trip across America, but in whatever endeavor you want to take on. It can definitely get you unstuck. I would also say that it's a bit of a coming of age story, so if you're dealing with stuff like that, or either in your past or currently, there are elements that I help with that as well.
And you make a mention of something, and I think it's interesting, and it is the fact that you guys went across the nation. So that means that you really got to see sort of the heart of the nation. You got to see the people, and I'm sure they came in different shapes and sizes, colors, and personalities. And so your story will likely give that to let people know what is interwoven in the fabric of the nation. And I think that in itself is inspirational. And a lot of people who do things without the intent of inspiring others inspire. Like if you look at this story, you went from a college graduate with a glimmer in your eye about maybe what you wanted to do, to being a father, a best friend, and basically a brother to Geoff, and a family man with a career. I mean, you were clearly successful at this point in your life. And just imagine what more is going to happen for you going forward from taking this journey of writing the book now. The book was your next journey. And so the big question is when is the book available, and where is the book available? Again, Tour Stories from Beside the White Line.
Yes, thanks for asking. So the book will be available on Kickstarter starting March 1st is when we're going to launch that. And it's sort of a well, it's not sort of, it definitely is a crowdfunding website. So we're going to try to raise enough funds for all the editor and upfront publishing costs. And so, the book is done. The book is written. It's actually, right here in my hand. I'm holding one copy just for me. But there's a lot more that comes after that that's pretty expensive, and that's what we're raising funds for. And that'll be on March 1st. We're starting that Kickstarter campaign.
Awesome. And so if people are looking for the book, because we live in the digital age, because of variety, there's some people I know, because I've written books myself, some people like the tactile feel, but some people like the digital. So is your book going to be available as an ebook, an audio book, and are you going to do anything with tour stories? Will you tour, or what are your sort of perceptions of the potential of what your work is going to do?
Sure. So yeah, of course it'll be in an ebook, because that's, everybody uses the ebook now. So it'll be in that format. The audiobook, I'm debating on two different ways of doing it, right? Getting a professional voice actor to do it, but that would again cost, thousands of dollars. So it comes down to, we have our Kickstarter goal, whatever that is, that we decide on March 1st. If we reach, X percentage above that, I will voice record the audiobook. And then everybody who bought anything will get a copy of that. And then if we reach, X percentage above that, then I'll get a professional guy to do it. And then again, everybody will get a copy. But as far as, tour stories in and of itself, I do plan to use the funds. If I do make any money off this book, I do plan on recycling that into my next adventure, my next book, Tour Stories, Hiking the AT with Geoff.
Which I'm really excited to hear about. I hope I'm on the Joe Rogan path of having a long-lasting podcast, so I can have a video version of you guys where we talk about tour story hiking the Appalachian Trail, in the modern day, right? And
yeah,
so
we'll be sure to show up real rugged looking, disheveled, dirty.
Well, the interesting thing is that the cover for this, and for this specific podcast, you have a beard, and Geoff, you look I'm not totally clean shaven, but you're pretty clean shaven, more so than Shaun is, in the image. But it's just it's a maturation that I don't even know if you guys saw yourselves where you are, and so just in a couple of closing notes. Is there anything that you want to leave people with about your friendship, the growth that you both have experienced, and what you're looking forward to in the next chapters in life? Because this story, this adventure that you went on that became a story that will be shared very soon, is one that will likely be inspirational, because everyone is not built to do what you did. And so you're going to teach people how to build themselves and to do. So Shaun and Geoff, I'll let you add any extra color you'd like to add.
Yeah, I think it's, if you can find that person in your life that, you don't have to necessarily do like physical challenges, but just like, if you can find that person that is always willing to challenge each other, definitely hold on to that person in your life, because you guys or gals are going to go a long way if you stick together.
100%. I mean, like currently, Geoff is the only one that has finished a marathon, because I got injured when we were training for our last one. And so we're training for another one. And so, we talk to each other almost every day. Hey, what did you do today? What's your training plan look like? Don't ask me about my nutrition, because I had McDonald's. So,
well, and the thing about it is that as you I am abroad, and I think one of the things that I found interesting, I've heard stories about people who hike Machu Picchu or have done different things in the world, and how it's completely changed them. If you could project yourself in the next 5 to 10 years, what do you see yourselves being, because you're going to do the Appalachian Trail, which means there's going to be another great story and more growth from you. And you're adult men now. So is there another coming of age for you, or do you think this is sort of to define yourself as who you are, create a legacy for the generations behind you? So Shaun and then Geoff, or Geoff and Shaun, whoever feels comfortable starting.
Yeah, I think that coming of age stories happen every like 4 years for me. It seems like, I mean, I come home and then I get married, and that's a whole nother adventure that I got to start. Right. And then we go on, and we actually hiked Machu Picchu, Caitlin and I, and it was about that development aspect. And I was able to give back because Machu Picchu wasn't extremely difficult for me. Like the Salkantay trek, or the Salkantay Trail, and that like 6 or 7 days we were hiking. It was hard, yeah, but it's I love that because I got to watch her push herself and like really have to dig deep and find it in her to keep moving. And man, that was awesome. I love that. And so I got another one coming up with my son. Like, he's a year and a half now. That's a brand new bag of tricks I got to learn. So yeah, I think coming of age stories happen, every couple of freaking years.
Awesome. And Geoff?
Yeah, I think that I mean, a lot of what we've been talking about is really mostly just like physical challenges and pushing ourselves, but I think those are important because you can take away things you've learned and just how to deal in those moments and apply them to other aspects in your life, where it's being like, supportive in a relationship or a career or whatnot. So I think it's important just to push yourself and just overcome obstacles and learn along the way.
I think the story that you guys, the experience you had, the story that you're going to tell and share with the world, Shaun, is one that's definitely worth reading, which I will be reading and listening to. So again, that is Tour Stories from Beside the White Line, and that is by the author Shaun Morrison. And hopefully we have a contribution from Geoff in there, because he helped contribute to the story. So we look forward to hearing more about that. But the podcast is called Voices of My Brothers, Sisters, and People. I have always believed that listening to other people and asking questions of why to other people develop us in a way that beyond our imagination. And this series that I've done with you, Shaun, has been one that I've really appreciated. I feel like I've gotten to know the quality man that you are, and it's I'm proud that as a veteran myself, that you are one of the people who hold the line for our country as well. And so I thank you for your story. And so I like to leave the final voice with the guests of the show, or the contributors, as I like to call them. So you can talk about anything you wish. Obviously, we are in a brand new year, and so you can talk about anything you desire, but I leave it to you, and I say thank you for that. So, Geoff, I'll have you go first, and then Shaun, because this has highlighted you, I will have you go last. But I will say thank you to both of you, and I definitely wish you all the best in every endeavor you do.
Yeah, thank you for having me on the podcast. I think it was just fun having a chance to. It's been a while since I've talked about this, and it's just fun to reflect on everything and just kind of talk about things that happened ages ago and how we've all kind of moved forward in life.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, I've sat here at my computer and looked at maps and studied, do we take this turn or that turn, and like use Google Images to like zoom in, or Google Maps to like zoom in, and what did this building look like again? Remember it? Because again, those details, they start fading away pretty quickly. But being able to talk about it with Geoff and you yourself, Lou, it's really been a lot of fun, and I can't really describe how appreciative I am for you to have me on your show. Your charisma and personality is just one that I will certainly remember, and I appreciate you having me.